when the film came out, also one of the most consistent review points which I received was that that song was a great theatrical experience. See, I don't mind everybody being a lover of cinema and having their opinion about cinema. But when everybody starts becoming an expert on cinema and then says that, this movie, every scene is an elevation, which makes absolutely no sense. I still remember being literally blown away by Roja when I heard it for the first time. Again, all the examples, just a fair warning right at the beginning, you're going to hear A.R. Rahman's name come up quite a lot.
Hey everyone, my name is Porush, and in this new episode of the Long Live Cinema Show, I got the chance to speak to Midhun Mukundan. He's a film music composer who is known for orchestrating symphonies for projects like Toby, Garuda Gamana Vrishabha Vahana, Rorschach, and many more. I'm someone who is an absolute admirer of music when it comes to the world of storytelling, and I'm so happy that I got the chance to speak to Midhun, who does that same job when it comes to designing music for films, for stories, and this conversation just led to so many different directions when it comes to the importance of music in cinema, how music makes you feel something while you are watching a film or any kind of story unfold. And we touched upon a lot of his works that he has done. He was kind enough to share complete breakdowns of his compositions, and I had great fun talking to Midhun. And I hope that you also enjoy this podcast as much as I did. So, without any further delay, sit back, relax, and let's start the show.
See, it's always a very interesting thing that how our work affects another human being. It really makes it's something which is very revelatory for us as artists because we created in a certain space, in a certain headspace. We have our own pressures, and we are trying to make the film better and the film more successful. And those are our thoughts, and something that would get people's attention. And then when somebody probably speaks to you, like yourself, like how it would have connected to you on a much more deeper emotional scale. I think that is the joy of taking part in something like this. It's not about, creating a fan base or getting thousands of followers. That's not what I'm here for. It's just a conversation with you, and I believe you're from Kolkata, right?
No, I'm not. So
Oh,
this is a
sorry.
very common misconception. That's all right.
Okay, okay.
I belong to Lucknow actually in UP.
Lucknow. All right, all right. I'm so sorry. I think I
That's
misunderstood.
okay.
That was my wrong.
That's
Anyway,
okay.
so no, but the thing is, like, I can safely tell you that when I made that song, Lucknow was probably the farthest thing from my mind. That I can assure you. Because I'm not thinking about a person from Lucknow when I'm composing that song, and because I'm thinking about my director, my film. It's a small world, our small team. And of course, probably the audience in Karnataka and how they would react to it. But you, as a viewer, watching that film without having any clue about the cultural background of that place of Mangalore, or even the song Sojugada. Sojugada is a song which even I wasn't aware of. I'm a Malayali actually, so Kannada. Yeah, I'm originally from Kerala. So I moved to Karnataka for my higher education, and then followed by settling down here for music. So this is how. So I'm basically a Malayali by birth and a Kannada Kannadiga by my life right now. But the point is that at that point also the only aim that I had was that my work should contribute to the betterment of the film. The experience of watching the film should be improved, and at the same time I wanted to do justice to the culture of the Kannadiga people, the state of Karnataka, and what the song Sojugada means to them on a much deeper emotional level. I just wanted to do justice to that. So these are the only two things. So I'm not meaning any disrespect when I say that other states or other people, other languages. This was not my thought process. So when this film and the music transcended boundaries and started being appreciated by people in Kerala, then Tamil Nadu, and southern states, and then it moves up further north. It is something which it takes a life of its own. It's something which we do not anticipate, and I can assure you that no matter how many crores that it makes at the box office, for me personally as an artist, that is the true victory of of the art that I created. So it's for me that I think it's a very exhilarating feeling to be speaking to someone like you and understanding how it affected you. So I think I would
Yes.
like that to be the focus of the podcast more than anything else.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's so
Sure.
sweet of you. And yeah, this is a revelation for me as well, that you are a Malayali.
Yeah.
And so I should call you Chetan in that case. So
Sure. Please feel free.
yeah, I befriended a Malayali like 6 months ago, and she's
Mhm.
also like a huge cinema nerd and everything.
As
And
in,
now it feels like the cross section of languages has started happening. She's speaking way better Hindi, and I am sometimes speaking way better Malayali. But yeah,
Malayalam.
that's just yeah, Malayalam. Yes.
I understand.
So that is happening. But yeah, jokes apart, thank you so much. And yeah, I just would love to start with something which it might sound very counterintuitive, but I it's like I want to ask the creator himself that
Mhm.
can you please help in defining the kind of music that you create? What exactly is the genre that you do? Because when when I listen to a Garuda Gamana, or
Mhm.
when I listen to a Toby, or when I listen to a Rorschach,
Mhm.
I get emotionally invested in that music. I
Yeah.
just feel it. I just feel it a lot. But the problem is that I am not able to put words to that emotion. If, like, let's say, if I like Linkin Park, so maybe I can say that, yeah, I like rock music, for example.
Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
listen to Avicii or anyone, Hardwell, then yeah, electronic. But
Electronic.
when it comes to music, that something like what you do, I sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time find it difficult to actually define this space of music that you
Yeah.
have created. So can you please take the lead and help us and me especially understand and define what is this genre of music that you prefer and you have created?
Yeah, see, whenever I give an intro about myself, I always introduce myself as a film music composer. So that word film is essential to my identity as a musician, because I compose music for film, and film by its very nature is varied in genres, and it's varied in its way of storytelling. The same genre, a gangster drama like Garuda Gamna, will be done. If you give it to five different directors, five of them will have five different languages, and the music is going to change. I will, I definitely work on more gangster dramas in my career, I'm sure, because it's a genre that I really love. But it will sound nothing like Garuda Gamna, because it will follow the script, it will follow the film, and it will follow the vision of my director. So that is, I think, in a nutshell, I would say. I remember watching this interview of A.R. Rahman once, who's an idol of mine. So he happened to mention that, Indian film music composers do not have the luxury of defining a genre. We do not have that thing because of the fact that he has to do hip hop in one film, and then he has to do a Jodha Akbar in the very next film, followed by romantic ballads in the third film. So you really, like, we have to be proficient, or we have to be like, we are literally pushed into experimenting with different genres, even genres that we are not familiar with or we haven't been trained in. An independent artist like Taylor Swift, for instance, she starts off with country music. She experiments in that. That is her background, and then she moves to pop. She has her space. I've not yet heard a Linkin Park track from Taylor Swift, right?
Yeah.
So she has that luxury because she's defined by her genre. For me, for us as film music composers, especially in India, I don't think we can ever ask Hans Zimmer what his genre is. Right? He does not have one. For Dune, he creates something else. For Batman, he creates something else. So I think that is definitely the most succinct, definition that I can give of my job description. But I think the challenge and the excitement lies in that. I definitely, nothing against independent artists, they create brilliant music, but I don't think that is something that I would have liked to do, because I love to put music to a story. I love to, I love that my music or the soundtrack that I create aids in telling the story. Like if it is Garuda Gamna or even Rorschach for that matter. I think Rorschach, the one particular thing about Rorschach was that, in fact, no, I think both these films had that in common. The dialogues were very less. There were lots of scenes where the characters are not saying anything. It's just looks and, slow camera movements. which are supposed to convey to the audience what is happening or what is going on in the character's mind. So the job of the music was to bring that to the forefront. Basically, what is in the person's mind, what is left unsaid, is what I have to communicate through music. So I think for me, that challenge is the really delicious part of doing this job. So
Right.
I think that's my genre, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard you, but I would still like to go a little deeper into
Sure,
this
sure.
later in the conversation.
Absolutely.
But before that, I want to know, how did the transition from medicine to music happen? What was it like?
I don't think there was a transition per se. It's basically that one day I was a doctor, next day I decided to stop and then do this. It was just like that. But the desire to be a musician, especially a film music composer, has been there, I think, since I was in seventh grade, sixth grade. When I still remember being literally blown away by Roja when I heard it for the first time. Again, all the examples, just a fair warning right at the beginning. You're going to hear A.R. Rahman's name come up quite a lot. There are obviously, there are lots of other people who have influenced me, but I remember listening to the album of Roja. I couldn't understand a word at the time because it was in Tamil and even Hindi for that matter. Both languages were foreign to me at that point of time. So, but the music, just the sound, just the sheer sound, you have to take yourself back to '92 when almost every album, every song has that kind of typical arrangement of dholaks and tablas and strings and flutes and things like that. And then this man comes up with something like I'm like I don't even know what the sound is. There's like kick, the and then it's like, and I still remember I've seen an interview of Ed Sridhar, the sound engineer. The great man is no more. He was the sound engineer behind the sound of A.R. Rahman, the sound that we all know. It was his magic too. So this gentleman in one of his interviews, he mentioned that Rahman's vision is so strong. It's such a clear vision. So he had apparently told him that the entire song should feel like snow is falling on you, like you're in Kashmir and that the cold feeling of snow falling on you and you let's say you jump into the snow, how that should hit you. So if you remember, the song starts with a tin, 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 there's something like that, and then the something like a glass comes and breaks on your face, and then the beat starts. See, that is what excited me. Like, with sound I'm able to create a world. You don't need to watch the visuals of that song to get to Kashmir and be on a honeymoon with your loved one. That is the magic of his music. So I think that was one of those first albums which I heard, and I was, of course, I was what, I think 6 at the time, 5 at the time. So obviously you don't know anything better, but there was instantly that magnetic attraction towards this thing. More than the fact that I didn't want to be SP Balasubramaniam and sing that song. I wanted to be A.R. Rahman and make that song, make it sound
Okay.
like that. So I think that was a very instinctive reaction. And as the years, and so my school years were the time when A.R. Rahman was becoming this phenomenon day by day. Each album was just like pushing the boundaries, and we were all shocked by what he's doing.
Right.
Chikapukka Raile comes out, Kadalan comes out. So it's just so as that was happening, I think probably around sixth or seventh grade is when I got to the realization, okay, this is what I really want to do. I can safely say that Dil Se was one of those albums. Taal was one of
Hmm.
those albums, which and his um, the Ma Tujhe Salam album.
Yes. Yes.
Like even today, just a few days ago, I was traveling and I played that song in the car as I was driving, and I still fail to find an album of that sound quality, that level of production, that soul in it. There is all this technology and there is this magic that he creates, but there is such soul in the compositions. It's just brilliant. So I think that was the real hook for me. And post that, I think being from a very academically oriented middle class family, it was not easy to bring this news to the parents. So when I did, they asked me to just be safe, because I mean I was a pretty good student in school, so they didn't want me to go let all that academia go to waste. So they said, okay, fine, get a degree, do something which will protect your future. We don't want to see you on the streets in a few years. So just let's make it safe. And at that point, I think medicine turned seemed like a very good option because I was a biology student. I
Okay.
chose the science stream with biology in school, and it didn't seem like something which is impossible. So I was like, okay, and it's a very safe backup because doctors are always in demand. Medicine always requires more hands on deck. So that's how the whole medicine thing happened. It was never that I had the desire to be a doctor and then I shifted midway. The desire was always to be a musician. This was just the sensible choice that came along the way. That it was like, if I always say this, it's kind of like my probation period. That those 5 6 years that I had to do. So kind of like a agreement with my parents was that I finished this degree without too many, what do I say, like back, what do you call it, in supplementaries and all that stuff,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
all your,
yeah.
so I managed to finish it without all that in the least amount of time required. And so the wager was that if I do that, then you give me a small amount to just set up a professional computer and a keyboard, and I can at least start dabbling in this. So
Right.
that's how it started. And yeah, and then I just went on exploring. I just kept working on my music. Somebody or the other would come along, probably hear it. Joined a band when I was in Mangalore while I was doing my residency, like the house
Yeah,
urgency
yeah.
time. So once that was done, I think it was just by sheer coincidence that I ended up in Bangalore. Just got this opportunity to work here with a composer for a couple of weeks. Met a few friends through that, and that turned to a decision to live in Bangalore. Again, worked with another band here, and during that time, met a director. He was also an independent filmmaker. Did not know the first thing about how to make a film. He just wanted that. He just wanted to make a film. He had these ideas in his head, and he wanted to put it out. And the ideas were very good. Like they were very robust, and I still remember it because it was my first ever narration, and it felt so fresh, and the way it hit me. And in that one moment, I knew that this is the guy that I want to work with, and I also knew that this is the job that I want to do.
Right.
Not play in a band, not be a keyboard player, not be a stage musician, but film music composing. Because immediately it connected. I was like, yes, I can. As he is narrating, I can see the scenes in my head. I can imagine what kind of music I would like to do. So with him, his name is Arvind Shastri. I did my first film Kahi with him, and amazing guy, a very good friend of mine, and like again, a very very passionate filmmaker. Lots of fresh ideas. The way he looks at life, the way he looks at cinema is very fresh. So we incorporated all that and worked on that first film. It took almost 2 years, but since then the journey has been going. Like the first movie gave me the next two films, and it's just
Right.
been building on that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's how the transition happened. As I said, there was no particular transition per se, but it was more of a, what would I say? It's like it was something which was necessary to be completed so that I could pursue my dream. It's
Yeah.
just that. Yeah. And
Let's just say,
at some point, yeah, and at some point I had to make that decision. Like, I had to take that call that are you going to take this risk or not? So
correct.
that was probably maybe the tough decision that I had to make. And in hindsight, it never seemed tough to me. The what happened post that decision was the tough part because obviously there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of resistance, there's a lot of financial difficulties and things like that. So that aspect, I mean, which I think anybody who follows their passion has to go through.
Sure, sure.
But I think barring that, I would really not call it a tough decision. But I think that one moment when I had to finally take a call was the only transition phase. Otherwise, this was the plan all along.
Right. And it's like one event after the other, things kept happening, and then
Yes,
yeah, you just landed
yes,
on the right opportunities at the right time.
true,
Really,
true.
really resonate with this. And if I may, I would also like to include an album of A.R. Rahman, which is glorious to say the least, and it is Rangila.
Oh,
the
yes.
the music. And so I used to work for a bunch of YouTube channels, tech YouTube channels. I've always been
Hmm.
into video production. I'm a journalism grad. So
Okay,
you have these IEMs, and
okay.
I heard the music of Rangila for the very first time from one of those IEMs that have those special wires and all that,
Oh, is
these
it?
headsets.
Hmm.
And I was just completely blown away by the kind of detailing that Rahman has done
Oh,
with the dholak and so many instruments. Like if you listen to Hi Rama, that
oh, yes.
song is it's like it's so powerful because of
It's
how everything just culminates. And yeah,
it's
it's
just I think what I would like, if I had to steal something from A.R. Rahman, it would not be his equipment or his studio. He has one of the biggest studios in the world. None of that. It would be that part of his brain which decides how, what instruments he's going to use.
Right.
I've not yet come across a musician or a music composer who has that unbelievable capability to bring these absolutely, like, I would never, as a composer myself, when I'm composing a song in this particular genre, that instrument would probably be the last thing that I would think of. And he would bring it and he will, just create some magic out of it. Like you can't imagine a better instrument. There's so many instances. We always, probably our brains first register the flutes and the pianos and things like that. But there are these little things, these percussion instruments and things like that he brings in between. Just last night I was watching Ponniyin Selvan. I
Yeah.
didn't get a chance to watch the film earlier, so I just watched the film and there is this fight sequence between Jayam Ravi and Karthi. And it like lots of people would go for these heavy drums, and of course those are there, no doubt. But it starts off with like a female chorus, like coo 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 coo. It's see those kinds of things. I think I as listening to his albums over the years has kind of trained my brain to think like that. Try to think out of the box because there are a lot of musicians who I admire for their composing abilities. But when it comes to the aspect of production and how to make something sound interesting with just the least, but it's like, it's not about adding a lot of sounds, but it's about selecting that perfect sound.
Right.
And and he's a magician. I told him this podcast will become a J.A.R. Rahman podcast soon. I very quickly, I can assure you. So
Okay,
that's the thing.
okay.
Yeah,
I'll switch the gears now, and
sure.
I'll come back to you. And since we are talking about the entire process of how music aids the story and everything, so I would now like to know, when and how do you begin with composing a film? Do you come on board to a project right from the very pre-production conceptual stage, or sometimes you come in the middle of the production of itself?
I mean, if I prefer to come in at the beginning always. There are a few instances where I have, probably not heard the script to begin with, and some other reasons where I've come into the project probably towards the end and stuff like that. But if I have to be honest with you, I don't think none of them have been very fruitful endeavors. So again, as part of my career, like I'm 10 years into my career now. So along the way, you've made a lot of right decisions, some wrong decisions, but you have to try them all out to figure whether it works for you or not. So I realized along the way that I am a person, as I said, because my desire is to not even just create music for a visual, it's also to create music for a story.
Right.
It's to get my music to aid the storytelling process. So for that, I think the story has to kind of ruminate inside me for a while. So I
Right.
like to listen to it right from the beginning, from this,
Okay.
like once the script is done and the screenplay is locked or something of that sort. At least somewhere towards the the finished product, so that I can hear the dialogues and hear the setting where the scene is happening, and all those
Hmm.
things really make a difference. Because
True.
even if a scene is happening in a cozy little kitchen, and if it happens in this grand ballroom, the same scene will have a different soundscape.
Absolutely.
I think it was I can't recollect who I heard say this. Some very very popular music composer. I think it was Junkie XL.
Yes.
Junkie XL.
Huge fan.
Yeah,
Huge fan.
huge fan of his too. So
Yes.
Junkie XL was told this by somebody else, by some other composer. So he said always score music for the space that the scene is happening in. So if the scene is happening in a small kitchen, let's say in a Bangalore apartment, your music cannot sound like a opera.
Yeah.
It
True.
it doesn't, like our brains don't. So there it has to have this cuteness, and in fact even the reverbs that we use for a certain instrument has to be in something like, imagine the instruments are being played in that same space.
Correct.
Now, the
Correct.
same dinner scene, if it's being held in a royal palace and it's in a grand ballroom, the music would be much richer and much grander and stuff like that, and that would actually work. So I
True.
think there are these little thought process. So all these things actually kind of tend to grow in you as you're thinking about the film. Like I've listened to a script right now for one of my upcoming projects, and the film is going to start filming probably in July. But I already know the story. I know the scenes, and as they're filming, it is kind of I have my own vision of how those scenes are going to turn out.
Right.
Of course, when the finished product comes, sometimes I'm extremely surprised. I'm so shocked by how different it is and how much better it is than what I imagined. That's why I'm not a director. They are the directors and cinematographers. They know their job much better. But it's inevitable. Even if I read a Harry Potter book, I have a imagination and I have a visual happening. And when I saw the film, some of it, I would say my imagination was better. Some of it, the film did it better. This always
Right.
happens. That's one of the beauties of reading. So I love reading scripts. I ask them to send me PDFs if possible. And if not, I like to hear these narrations in person. It really helps my process. So
Right.
unless absolutely necessary, I try to avoid projects where I have to hear the script or, see the film later on. I like to be involved right from the very beginning.
Right. You just again, so for you, this will become an AR Rahman podcast. For me, this will become a Junkie XL podcast because I'm a huge fan of Tom Holkenborg
Oh,
and
yes.
whatever he has done. And he has used a Nagada for a background score. I could never
Yes.
imagine him using, and he, like in one of his BTS shows and interviews, he was showing how he has this huge drum set, custom
Yes.
built, so that he
Yeah.
can get that one specific sound, and that too
So,
like a hum, a small
yeah.
hum from it, not like a huge thumping sound, but a very small
Correct.
moment from it, and
Yes.
only that instrument of that volume and size can do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a
No,
huge
I'm a,
fan of
I'm a
him.
huge fan of him. I think I was introduced to him in the first Mad Max film. I'd
Yes.
seen the name in credits earlier, but I think the first film where I saw him as the solo composer was the first Mad Max film. And that came out probably a year before I
20,
did my first film. 2015, I think, right?
yes,
Something,
2015.
something around
Yes.
those time. My first film came out in 2016. So around the time that I was trying to figure out how to score a film is when this comes out. And in one film, he basically rewrote a lot of the things which I thought were the rules of scoring. Just an absolute magician, just the man is simply brilliant. I have no idea how do you come up with the idea. See, the execution part, the what you told
Yeah.
about this particular drum or the particular hum or whatever it is, that is the execution. But to actually come up with the idea that this sound is what I
Yes.
want, this is what is going to give that scene the effect that I require, that is the I told you, as I said, if I had to pick something, if I had to steal something from these people, it would be that. It would be the part of their brain that comes up with these ideas. I try to, in my own way, I try to, emulate them in my workflow.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy to be discussing Junkie XL. Thank you.
Sure.
Because of course I'm sure we all are excited for Furiosa. So
Oh,
I'm just
you have
very
no
much looking
idea.
forward
I'm,
to.
I'm, I'm searching Book My Show every day for when the bookings are opening. You have no idea.
Oh wow, excellent, excellent. We are on the same page. I'm so happy, Midhun. I'm so happy. We are on the same page. Yes. Okay. But like you just mentioned about how sometimes things can turn out different than what you perceived them to be. So sometimes while you are pitching something or after you have created something, a small part of music, and you share it with the folks who are the storytellers. So, do you come across rejections as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a part of the creative process. You have to be prepared for it. And I think that is one of the hardest things about being a film music composer that you have to get used to. I mean, as an artist itself, you have to get used to the concept of rejection and being very much a part of your life, of your career. But I think one of the things is that initially, I still remember this in my first few films when I created something and I feel that, oh, this works so beautifully. This is perfect, like for this scene. And then I send it across and they're like, oh no, we can't even, imagine this in our film. For I used to get angry. I used to genuinely get angry, but it's not angry at them, but angry at the idea that what I am seeing is not being appreciate it, or they are not able to see what I'm seeing and feeling. But then I
Right.
think with time, with maturity, with experience, I've understood that I have to come to the point where I have to understand that everybody's musical tastes are different. Just like my audience,
Right.
my director is also
Right.
another individual, my producer is another individual,
Sure.
and they all have a stake in this, right? They
Yeah.
everyone has a stake in this. So they have to I have to respect the fact that maybe they do not appreciate what I see in that particular piece of music or what I'm feeling. Maybe another director or producer someday along, probably a few years down the line might come with another project, and if I give the same tune to them, they might really get it the way I feel it. It's possible. But I
Yeah.
cannot hold it against these people. I cannot be upset about it. I have to be professional and probably move on. In fact, what I do in those situations, like my general approach is that initially when I'm scoring or when I'm composing a song, I go by instinct.
Yeah.
I've read the
Right.
script. The director has given me a clear briefing of what he wants the scene to be like, how he plans to, film the song, or what is going to be in the visuals, what is the pattern of cuts and things like that. We'll probably talk about that. And then I just go by instinct. I try to create something which instinctually comes to me because of that description. But if that doesn't work, then I think nowadays my workflow has adjusted in such a way that I am like, that's perfectly fine. Do not worry about it. We'll crack it. We just need to work on it a bit more. Why don't you, just tell me when you think about this scene, what is a song that comes to your mind? What is a piece of music that comes to your mind? So that I can understand what works for him. And then I can probably, work something else out in that particular style, or probably like I might have gone for something which has a tempo like this, and he probably wants something with a tempo like that.
Right.
Now, my song in the other tempo might be brilliant and he might love it, but it is not what suits his vision, right? So I have to, I think with a little bit of experience and maturity, I think I've gotten to that point where I understand that when we are naive and idiotic, we don't really appreciate that aspect. He's also a
Right.
visionary, and he has a dream, and he's an artist, and I have to appreciate that.
Sure.
So that's it. And so initially, those days when the rejection used to come, I would be probably down for the rest of the day because I'd be quite upset about it, or probably a little heartbroken. Oh God, this was this was something which I had so much confidence in, and they don't want it. Would make
Yeah.
me feel a little down. But now I'm like, okay, fine. Let's move on to the next thing. Explain it to me.
Right.
So yeah, that's very much a part of the process.
Great, got it. Before we move ahead, I would love for you to touch upon some of the technicalities that you take
Sure,
care while working on a composition. And
sure.
when I say technicalities, some elements that
Mm,
you consider while composing something so that it helps us deepen our understanding of your process and
mm.
in general how music composition is done.
Okay, so when you mean technicalities and like what is my actual process, like
Yeah,
from a
so
step
like
by step kind of a thing?
yeah, yeah. So like when you are creating a tune,
Mm,
how do you uh, how do you create it? Let's just say, like you just said, choosing the instrument. Then,
mm,
if I, who is an absolutely like I don't know about anything, but I know कि यार इसमें ना bass आ रहा है, इसमें
mm,
अच्छा ना इसमें there is a reverb. So
mm.
how do you make these choices? And can you help us define these choices when you are composing a tune?
So to answer your question, see the thing is, I think one thing which I probably, it's not that it's a bad thing to think about the technicalities and things like that, but one of the most important aspects for me when it comes to composing is that the compositions have to have soul. There has to be feel in it. So I have a almost standard way of starting a like a composing session, is that I load up the most basic piano tone, and I have my headphones on, and I just start, just play something and just start jamming. That's it. Like if I have to give you an example, since I'll give you an example of a song that you already know, so that you can see how it was created. So there is a song from Garuda Gamna which is Endo Bareda. It's a love song. It's a yes. So that track was actually composed for another film, right? It was one of the options that I gave another film of mine. So it's a very simple love track with a guy and a girl, and it's like, they take a trip to like Nandi Hills or something of that sort. Which is like this, it's a very beautiful spot where people go on weekends and just for a drive, go on top of the hill, very scenic views. So that's the kind of visuals. They're on the bike, and they're very much a young couple in love, just dancing around. He throws her dupatta, the usual filmy stuff. So yes, so I went for and they're a very young couple, like probably just fresh out of college kind of a thing. So I went for a few, um, I would say, melodious tunes with a bit of a pop touch to it, which would reflect their. Again, you can see the thought process because I'm trying to get into the space of those characters, right? So, so for that, if I had to give an example for that particular song, I would not compose something like from Jodha Akbar. Now that is a song which has a very regal feel and a very much more mature feel because the characters are a lot more mature. So this one had a slightly more. So this is a track called Neela Kasha Kelo. So I gave three options, and then as I was composing for that tune, I don't know what happened. I was just jamming on the piano, and then this thing came. I had a bell kind of a tone on my keyboard, and as soon as like we keep changing these tones and just listening to them, and something might strike. So when that tone came, one of the first things that as soon as I played I just played. Dun, 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 dun. When that thing came, it just hit. Something just hit at that point. So I went. This was the thing. This was all it was. Okay. And again, when I knew instantly that that tune does not work for the situation that I'm working on right now. I knew it instinctively. It was not, but the tune really worked. Like, again, as I said, as a lullaby, as a probably a mother putting a child to sleep, or a lover putting his or her lover to sleep. It had that kind of an innocence, and there was a lot of depth in it. Emotional depth in it is what I felt. So then the composing part started. So I had this section, and I was like, okay, if this is going to be my chorus, how do I start the song? So that is when the whole and I wanted a slightly more. At least I felt at that point that there is a little more scope for a raga based exploration and a shift in raga. So if you hear that composition, it goes like this is in one raga. But the next line, it goes into a slightly minor raga. So I realized that this tune gave me that opportunity to slightly explore those kinds of notes and the situation I had in my mind, like of a mother putting this, probably a child that is not feeling well and is a little cranky at night, putting that to sleep. This would be that it will give that soothing effect. This was the kind of mind space I was in when I was composing it, and before I knew it, the entire Pallavi and this hook is set. It was composed. I had it on my phone. I saved it and kept it. That's how I usually do it. I just play it on the keyboard and record it on my phone. And I think soon after that, so when I sent it to the director of that film, the one which had the young couple, he immediately told me that this tune is beautiful. I wish I could use it, but unfortunately, my film does not have the situation for it. But it's a really nice tune, and it's really like it's haunting me in a way. He's like, I've already selected the tune that I want, but I keep listening to this one that you have sent over and over again. So I knew that the tune is working, and around that time is when I had heard the script of Garuda Gamana. So for reasons which were like it was the basic idea was to avoid a cliche, but the initial script actually had a female character in Garuda Gamna. So like if you have seen the film, there is a character called Ravi who comes in and creates the rift. He's the catalyst for the rift between Hari and Shiva. But in the initial, probably the first script that was narrated to me, it was supposed to be a female character. One of these characters falls in love, and because of that he is distracted, and the other guy feels a little left out, and that is the beginning of the rift. But then we decided that in too many gangster dramas a woman has become the catalyst for such a situation, so to avoid the cliche is why it was rewritten in that way. But so I had this thing in my mind that Garuda Gamna also has this love track. And
Right.
that love track requires something with a little more maturity, little more emotional depth. Because while one guy is falling in love, the other guy is feeling the pain of being left out. You know, there is a separation also that is happening. So all these things had to be encapsulated into this song. So again, we at this point, while I'm telling you this, the song is still in the piano and voice stage. Just the
Okay.
piano, and I'm la 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 on top of that. That's it, right? So then I sent it to the director and I told him that, I have no idea if this song will have a place in the film, but I believe that if there is a film that I can actually include this in, it is Garuda Gamna. So just listen to it. And to his credit, he heard the song, and by then he had dropped the idea of the lady, female
Okay.
character. But he
Hmm.
heard the song, and not only did he like it, but he basically, uh, he completely reimagined the relationship between these two men, you know, to such a point that if you look at the visual of Endo Bareda, it looks like Hari is almost in love and in
Yes.
awe of Shiva.
Yes.
And Shiva is
Yeah.
completely oblivious. He couldn't,
Yeah.
give a damn about who is looking at him. He's just walking and he's doing his usual stuff. So somebody is being trashed in the water, and this is the music that comes in the background, right? So that ultimate contrast, like not even in my wildest dreams had I imagined that kind of a visual for this song. As I told you, mine was a mother walking around with a baby, right? That's what I'm saying. It's as a creative process, it is always like it's like this beautiful cake. You start off
Yeah.
with a base and then you add a filling and then you add the next layer of cake. It's like that.
Hmm.
Everybody has this contribution to make, which starts elevating the level of the product. So once
Yeah.
he gave me those visuals, then I was like, let loose. He described this scene to me. I just broke free and I was like, I'm going to make this song the way I want with no rules, this thing, because he is going to figure out a way to, include it
Yeah.
into the film and
Yeah.
incorporate it in the film very seamlessly. And yeah, and after that, I think the process was that that song, the melody is the king. It's not a song which requires the instruments to shine too much unless required. They just have to
Yeah.
provide that backing. So my approach is always that I want to give something fresh. Nothing like I'm not trying to break the mold with every song or anything, but I just want the people who are listening to, this sounds nice. Like, that should happen. That first thing
Yeah.
should happen. And then
Right.
they should start falling in love with the melody. And they should be able to hum something.
Yeah.
The Pallavi part might be difficult for untrained singers to sing, It's not an easy line to sing if you're not trained in singing.
Yeah.
But the next section, that was supposed to be easy for everybody to hum. So these are the kinds of thoughts which are going in my mind. And then, of course, when the next interlude starts and the flute and the tabla come in,
Yeah.
again, it's about changing something up during the course of the song because it's a soft song. It's not something that can
Yeah.
get really loud. So I just want to
Yeah.
keep it interesting along the way. Move to the next section. And when we composed the second half of the song, the director had already told me that he was going to split the song into two in the film.
Mm.
So if
Mm.
you notice, the first half of the film comes in the first half of the
Yeah.
film,
Yeah. Yeah.
of the song and the film. It's in that section where basically the reverence, the almost reverent love that Hari has for Shiva is shown.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and then in
Yeah.
the second half, you see this song come again. The second half of the song comes where you see Shiva's pain at being, kind of sidelined by Hari. And
Correct.
Hari is showing the same reverence in his face towards another person, right? So now he feels left out. So the second half of the song is almost from Shiva's perspective. So the melody and the way it was composed, it slightly went to a higher pitch. So it had a little more pain in it. The first one had a lot more romance, very subtle
Yeah.
changes. And again, just
No,
so
no,
you
no.
know, this is all in my head. How much an audience member understands is a different litmus test all by itself. But in my head, that's how I'm feeling. Okay, now I'm feeling a
Yeah.
little more pain in this. So
Yeah.
we proceed from that and then we connect to the song. So these are I told you, I'm just giving it because what happened in Endo Bareda is completely unique to Endo Bareda. Sojugada had a totally different approach.
True.
Chandrachuda had a different approach. I'm just talking about the songs in Garuda Ganga, and the
Yeah, yeah,
same goes for all other films. So, but in a nutshell, I would say that my first and foremost, what do I say, the requirement when I like a tune and when I'm happy with a tune is that the tune itself should work for me emotionally with no instruments, just with the simplest backing of a piano. And when I'm singing it and when I'm humming it, I should feel that soul in it. And this goes regardless of whether it's a soft song or a heavy song or whatever. I should feel it. Like when I tried Sojugada for the first time, and that section where Chaitra's voice comes in, where she
yeah,
sings.
yeah.
Now that section in the initial version was in my voice, so I was the one who was like, that's the version which I sent to the director first. So when that was sung also, and what is it? And then when that was hitting, I had goosebumps. Right? Not
Yes.
because Midhun Mukundan created the music, nothing. Just as a music lover, it was hitting me. I was feeling
Yeah,
it. Then I know that I'm on the right track. And of course, then, as I said, we polish the sounds. We bring in artists like, like how Chaitra came in for that song, or
yeah,
Vasuki Vaibhav came in for Endo Bareda. And everybody, like even the people that we are selecting, like when I say we, I'm talking about myself and my engineer, Hriday Goswami. It's almost an insult to just call him my engineer because he's a lot more than that. He's like my brother from another mother, basically. Like very much my I would say my strength in this entire process because he gives me advice even before I ask him. He knows that I need help or guidance. He always gives me. So there is not a single singer or a musician that I've used in my music who I have chosen without consulting with him. So we always try to see whether, and they're all great artists, but they should suit the song. It's
right, right.
they are able to create great art when you give them the right thing to collaborate on. So
True.
I can't think of a better voice for Sojugada than Chaitra. I cannot think of a better voice for Endo Bareda than Vasuki. Like because his voice, when I sang the song, my voice is a slightly thicker and deeper voice. So it had this kind of a, it had a little more chest in it. You have that kind of a depth is there. But when Vasuki sang it became like honey. It became just
Yes.
so, it almost has a vulnerability to the voice, If you compare his voice and my voice, his is vulnerable and mine is arrogant, is how I how I would describe it, right? So that difference, and that is what we wanted for that song.
Right.
So in that way, there are these little micro decisions that we take at every stage, which is why, as I said, there is no flow chart or step by step technique which we have. It is just that we stick to what we believe is making us feel something. That's all I need. What the film requires, what the script requires at that point, is the music able to create that feel? Then I'm on the right track. And then I make decisions based on that, based on the genre, based like recently I did a Malayalam film called Pavi Caretaker. Now
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that film, I made a conscious choice to use more of flutes and pianos and strings, while the film that I worked right before that called Abraham Osler almost had no flutes. I don't think there was a single flute in that film because it was a very dark, criminal investigation thriller,
Yeah.
serial killings happening and stuff like that. So the script dictates these decisions in a large way. I
Right.
I'm not trying to make hit songs alone. I'm trying to make befitting scores for the film. That's my aim. So I think all my decisions stem from that particular aspect.
Yeah. You're
I know that
serving
was a
the
very long
story, as
answer.
they
I'm
say.
so sorry.
No, no, no. This is a fantastic breakdown. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and like you just said, it's like all of us, all of you guys together are ultimately serving the story. You are
Yes,
taking care of the chords. Someone is taking care of the camera. Someone is taking
correct.
care of the lights, and everyone is just serving the story at the end of the day.
True.
And speaking of micro decisions, what you just mentioned, there is a bit in Sojugada when Chaitra's portion just ends
Uh,
and there is a change of voice.
Voice. Yes, yes.
It just I what is that like? Is it electronic or
Yeah, that was see that's a it's a it's a technique that I experimented with because
okay?
I like Chaitra's voice had this very innocent feel. That's why we
Mm.
chose her voice, because she was not someone who had ever recorded in a studio before that. She was not a
Okay.
professional singer. She is an actor by,
Yeah.
by her first profession. But I heard this, I heard her singing this song in a reel at some point earlier, and I was really really fascinated by that voice, because there is rawness to it. It has this throw, which is very
Yeah.
difficult, by the way, from a singer's point of view. To get that level of throw is very difficult. So she had this throw, she had this open voice. It had no breaks or cracks in it. It was just solid, and
Yeah.
at the same time, it sounded very innocent. It's a voice which kind of defies her years. You know, even as she grows older, her voice still stays really, really like really like almost like a child. So what we had in mind was that as I created that song, and I was explaining this concept to my engineer, because he's the one who will be mixing it. You also asked about the reverbs, so I'll just
Yeah.
mention that also. So if you notice, the song starts off with my voice,
Yeah.
Mahadeva, Mahadeva, that section, and then I like many more layers of my voice just add, and we come in with a bang like Mahadeva,
Yeah.
Mahadeva. That section happens, and from that energetic thing, we wanted to move into a space where suddenly it basically feels like the heavens have opened up, and the gods are literally talking to Shiva directly, right? So what they're telling to Shiva in those lyrics, it basically means it is asking Shiva to calm down.
Right.
He's telling that I'm showering jasmine flowers onto your head to make you calm down, please, because he's doing the Rudra Tandav at that point.
Yes.
So the
Yes.
voice that delivered that message in my mind was this innocent angel, like almost like an angelic voice which comes from the heavens and is telling him to please calm down. So that's how this thing. So when she sings, "Andavare mundavare," if you listen to that section, you can hear the reverb and the echoes just moving all around. So the
Mm.
idea was that even in our theater mix also, we just moved the echoes and the reverbs all around us, so that we genuinely got that feeling that somebody from above was singing that section.
Mm.
But then what happens is, as she reaches the end of her line, it's like when she comes to that section, we know that this guy is not coming down. You can see,
Right.
because that is the moment where he takes that knife and he goes, and he screams, because he is not coming down. It's not easy to calm this guy down. So I basically wanted that voice to move from that soft thing to suddenly almost something demonic. And then her voice, my voice, we all come in with this chorus of Sojugada Sooju Mallige, and he screams. So that energy graph of the song had to just do that.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
wanted a transition. So what I basically did was that last line of verse, Madeva Nilna, I ran it through an FX plugin, which basically
Okay.
gave it all those extra kind of a, that kind of a tonality. So I used, so her normal voice track was there. This track was there with the let's say the demonic voice effect. So this track, the normal track went down in volume as that line progressed, and the other one
Okay.
came up in volume. So
Okay.
it's like
Okay.
so it's like this. It literally did this, you know. One went down and the other went up. So as you can, it almost sounds like the voice is transforming into the angel is becoming a demon. You know,
Right.
again, if somebody watches me doing all this mime right now, they'll think that this guy is nuts. But this is the craziness that happens in our head, and
Absolutely.
we just try to execute it. So my engineer also had this, because I had to explain it to him so that he can also understand.
Right.
So only then will
Yes.
he be able to, support me the way I needed him to support me in mixing that song. So,
True.
and yeah, and along with that, I think in Chaitra's voice, one more thing which we did was we actually reversed certain lines so she had actually done some humming, like, some, just stuff like that, just random phrases. I took it, if you listen to it carefully, the next time you listen to it, just listen, you can actually hear her voice going, like a reverse effect is there. You can actually
Okay. Okay.
hear it the next time. But again, for me, the thing is that it, if you notice, like Lord of the Rings, there is this character called, I think, Galadriel, the character played by
Rings of
Kate.
Power, more with Clark.
Yes, that she's the. It was played by Kate Blanchett, if I remember right. She
Yes,
played
yes.
that elfin goddess. There is a. I still remember watching that movie in the theaters, and there was this crazy effect that they created. She's talking in one, like her mouth is talking something, but Frodo hears a different voice in his head because through her mind she talks to his mind, so that
Yeah.
voice goes away and this voice comes into the this thing, so that something fading out and another thing fading in was such a, oh my God, what is this? I could feel like she was talking into my head, the way they had mixed it. And even her voice, she also turns a little scary at one point of time, like one or two words becomes a little loud, and you can hear that kind of a transformation in the voice. They have done some vocal processing there. So yeah, so you hear all these things stick with you, and then somewhere along the line we all incorporate it into our work. So I think those are the things which happened with Sojugada.
Midhun, I'm not kidding. If I were doing this in person, I would have given you a hug because Lord of the Rings, what Howard Shore, oh my God,
Oh,
you are just touching you are touching chords of my heart because I like. First of all, it's one of those playlists where you sob. You just listen
yes,
and you just cry. For
yes,
me, Titanic and Lord of the Rings and even Junkie XL at some places, they just make me sob uncontrollably.
yes,
And I'm so glad that you did this amazing breakdown. And trust me, nobody is going to say कि अरे ये क्या कर रहा है. It's beautiful. I can
thank
actually
you.
imagine the timeline of how you have explained this, and it's so, God, there is so much of work that gets done with even the minutest decisions.
Yes,
And I just hope that, yeah, people just pay a little more attention and try to appreciate these things. And coming to how, like, we are talking about characters a lot, and like you just
yeah.
mentioned that in the song I'm so sorry, I'm so
Endo
sorry for
Bareda,
the
no
pronunciation.
problem, no problem. Yeah.
Endo Bareda, the second moment when the song arrives,
Yeah.
there is a montage of a dog,
Mm.
Rajvi Shetty's character, and
Correct,
Shiva and Rishabh's character.
correct.
And this montage is trying to make that person look like as if he's treated like a dog. And
Yes,
this, like, I could just go back to the film again and just live that moment again, because I did like a detailed video on the same, how
uh,
the use of colors happen, and how, like, there is a scene when Brahmaya is lying down and half side is orange, half side is blue,
correct,
so
correct.
he's caught right in the middle. So
Yes,
this particular moment that you just mentioned, it is that montage is so fitting with the music, and
yeah,
it just explains exactly that he is a forgotten lover now.
yes,
He's a forgotten brother that it doesn't care, because the other guy has climbed to such great heights,
correct.
uh, and he has forgotten him. He's just riding a bike. He's just someone who
Yes,
is कि हाँ भाई तू bike से आजा, we'll just carry on.
correct.
And yeah, it's so beautiful, so
No,
beautiful.
but
I just
that's exactly what I mentioned earlier, because I had composed the
yeah,
first half of the song. But
yeah,
once he told me what he had planned for the first half, how to picturize the first half,
yeah,
I was like, you know what? Now I'm not even going to bother about how can this be picturized, because he is going to figure something out. I had that ultimate confidence. So again, when I did the second half of the song, this dog and stuff like that was not mentioned to me. I think he must have gotten the idea probably after he heard the music, the song in its completed form or something of that sort. But that, for me, there was so much more in the fact that he himself sees himself like a dog. It's not others. Shiva himself sees that character, at least this is my interpretation. He sees himself as a dog. He is loyal, all right? And a dog does not require a lot of things. He does not need the riches and the fame and whatever that Hari is getting. He just wants love. He just wants that attention. And without that attention, this guy is getting even more enraged, even wilder. He's becoming, it's a vicious cycle. The lack of love and attention is making him more vicious, which makes it more difficult to love him. And, it just gets worse. So that is, and in that kind of a song, to show it in that kind of a song, in that particular manner, and intercut with, again, he nearly beats a man to death in a bus, a conductor, for some reason. And that it's not even shown. It's just this man walking into the bus is shown, and we know what has happened there. And then he's sitting outside with blood-stained hands, and in between it cuts to that dog. So that's what I'm saying. It's there is, like, I can take credit for having created that song, which probably created the impetus for the director to create a scene like that. But I myself am in awe as an audience member of how that imagination went forward. You know, it's always, I think, one of the greatest pleasures of being a music composer, one of the happiest moments that I feel is when a song that you've created or a melody that created has been presented visually in such a way that you're shocked by how beautiful it looks. Like, the music itself has become more beautiful because of what the visuals have become. I think Endo Bareda was one of those songs in my life which definitely had that kind of an impact. I always knew it was a good song, but when I saw the visuals, it hit me so much deeper, so much harder. I stopped being the composer of the song and I started being a audience member who was just completely blown away by that experience. So recently, I had, again, in this Pavi Caretaker, I had a song called Venila Kanige, which was this Broadway styled love track. Like, I went for all strings and, just that very, very rich operatic kind of a feel. It was just depicting this man having fallen in love for the first time. And he's a man in his 40s, never had any girlfriends or wasn't married or anything of that sort. And he's in love for the first time. And when he's in love for the first time, he's basically like a teenager, like a very filmy hero. He's a security guard in an apartment, and at night when it is raining, he's in his security uniform and he's dancing around the apartment in the parking lot and stuff like that. But it had to have this fantastical quality to it. So I composed the song and I did have my imagination, but when I saw the visuals, I called the director, I called the cinematographer and the editor, and I personally thanked them. Not even congratulated them, but I thanked them for what they have done to that song, because it has become such a beautiful experience. And when the film came out, also one of the most consistent review points which I received was that that song was a great theatrical experience. So, I'm indebted to the people who kind of make the enjoyment of my song even more pleasurable through their talent. So whether it is in Garuda Gamna, whether it's these films, and hopefully films to come. But that's why, as you very clearly mentioned, there's so much of effort, so many decisions to be taken, and more importantly, I think it's an absolute uh, testament to the fact that filmmaking is a team effort. We can talk about stars, we can talk about, like, let's say when we talk about Triple R, we say it's a Rajamouli film, which is very true. It is Rajamouli's vision and execution and everything, but there are at least 1,000 people without whom that film would not have been made. And I'm not even talking about the actors. The actors are a huge part of it. I'm talking about the unsung heroes, per se, who we do not know about. So, and I mean, I completely understand that the general audience does not have to understand it. They will probably be fascinated with their stars more. They're good looking people. They are the ones that you're rooting for on screen. All true. But when we look at cinema, I think we have to start appreciating this fact that a movie can never be attributed to just one individual. Like, Garuda Gamna's success cannot be just because of the music or just because of the direction or just because of the script. All these things had to come together to create, like, as they say, the film is larger than the sum of all its parts put together. That is the beauty of cinema. I think that is something which I love, because it's always such a, I have had 22 releases in theaters so far in my career. The next film still scares the absolute shit out of me, because I do not know how to make music. And the reason why I'm able to say this openly is because one of my greatest idols, Hans Zimmer, has said the very same thing. He's like, he has done hundreds of films. And he says that when the next film comes and I'm looking at a blank sheet of paper or a blank computer screen, I'm completely lost on how to do music for this. He's like, the first thing I tell the director is, tell me what you want me to do. Tell me what you want me to create as music for your film. So you have to come down to that, zero, stage zero, and then you have to build your way up again. And it's so many months of effort. And then when the next one starts, you have to again go back to zero. So it's
Yeah.
a great, it's something which should make me shake in my boots, but at the same time, it thrills me so much. It's like a drug. I'm addicted to it. So I absolutely love that sensation.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You just mentioned about how you are mixing the sounds and making them feel in a certain way, depending on the story. Like you just mentioned about Sojugada, that how
Yeah,
you added the song in a mix as if it felt like it's coming straight from the gods. So, can
correct.
you dive a little more deeper into the sound mixing aspect and help us understand how, like, what exactly is done in a sound mixing? Because right now I feel that because of social media and because of how trailers and movies they are being talked about on social media, people have started considering and recognizing background score, sound mix, these terms. They know that
Correct.
and they appreciate it. So I
Yeah.
would love for you to take a little deep dive into how sound mixing is taken care of when it comes to music.
Um, See, again, the two aspects which we should never forget about, no matter which aspect of cinema that you're talking about, is that there is the instinctual approach, which
Okay.
I believe is something which you should not forget. Even if you're 50 years into the business, you should never forget the instinctual approach, and you should do what sounds good, what feels good, what works for the film well is what you need to do. So there is no
Correct.
written rule that this is the first step and second step. But at the same time, the with time and with experience and with education, of course, with learning, you start to understand the techniques that you can employ to get to that particular vision that you have faster. That's
Hmm.
it. Like I think maybe in the first film that I did for a particular sound effect, like I've used this sound effect that you mentioned on Chaitra's voice, that same kind of demonic effect. I've used in many of my compositions. But I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I would have probably taken 2 days to figure that out. Today, I can do it in 2 hours. I've probably just trained myself better, and I've gotten better at reaching that particular output. That's it. So the aim is always to get the audience to feel something. So, for example, if there is like in the first scene of Garuda Gamma, the very first opening scene, the scene opens after the Demon in Me song. The first shot is of Shiva washing his bloodstained hands in the rain outside a jeep. So as the jeep is moving, so the jeep arrives and it's raining. It's pouring, cats and dogs, and suddenly you have thunder. Now the reason why we decide it's almost common sense that the thunder is going to come from above because we are out in the open. This jeep has come and stopped. They step out of the vehicle, and now if there is thunder, it's going to come from straight above. So if it is an Atmos theater mix that we nowadays, you obviously must have watched films in Atmos. We have the added option of speakers on top. So we would definitely keep the thunder sound to come from above us so that we really get that audience gets that sensation of the thunder. Now, at the same time, when they finish that scene and then they move into the inside of the police station, we are inside a room. There is still rain and thunder outside, but when that thunder rumbles, it's not going to come from above. It's probably going to come from, it's going to be a lot softer. It's going to sound a little more distant, and probably we can keep it like maybe instead of straight above, maybe we might keep it a little towards that side. See, these are the decisions, and even in that scenario also, if the camera is let's say facing like Rishabh comes and speaks in that scene in the station. Let's say the camera is looking at Rishabh. There is a window to this side, right? Let's just imagine he's here. There's a window to that side, or the door of the station is towards my left. So from my perspective, the thunder is going to come from that side, right? Rather than right above, it's probably going to come around here or maybe a little further down. So this is how we place the sound. And by the way, this is not exactly my department. This is the 5.1 mixing engineer who does these kinds of things, but we all sit together and we, take these decisions. But what I mean to say is that mixing by itself is the same concept. It's about how do you want your sound to be presented in a particular scene where in a particular part of a song, like in Endo Bareda, when that interlude comes in, there's a flute and there is a tabla, right? So as the this is how the flute comes in. So when that flute comes in, it's like the flute plays, la, 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 re, re, re. But the tabla goes, ta, 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 ta. There's that roll of the tabla. I'm sorry, I don't know these. That sound is difficult to be made by my mouth. But that sound, I wanted it to be very loud because till that point there have been no strong rhythms in the song. It's just this very light, soft kind of a backing with a very soft kick, a very soft bass, and it's this very soothing thing. So when that tabla comes in, I wanted it to really hit, like a wave hit you. So my engineer and I, even when we decide a volume level for the tabla, we'll probably decide to make that first roll a little louder than the rest of the tabla, so that the audience can get that, that roll should really hit you, and then the tabla comes in, right? And even things like how loud should the tabla be, how loud should the flute be. There might be songs like Hai Rama that you mentioned, the Pakhavaj sound in that. Dum, 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 that. So that is probably the sound that he wanted really projected there, because that is the one which drives the song in that at that particular juncture. Now that same instrument might be used in another part of the song where it's not that important. Its level will be reduced, right? And which side does it come from? Does it move around? Is it here in center? Is it on the left or right? These are the simple things that we basically, the basics of what we are trying to achieve in mixing. It's about creating that product, creating that soundscape, okay, which communicates the feel of the song the best to the audience. That's it. Like if you look at the recent song Illuminati, I'm sure you must have heard the Aveshams. So it's such a successful song, and it's a song which immediately wants you to get up and dance. Now, the mixing engineer of that song, Eben Paul, he had put up a story where I saw he had put up just a photo of his computer, of his screen. So he had basically, because the song is such a dance number, that kick has to really cut through. So when that Illuminati, that dup, dup, dup should really kick through. And there are so many instruments. You can hear like hundreds of sounds playing around, the voices, everything is there. But this sound has to kick through. So I remember him showing that screen, and I saw that he had actually made sure that all other instruments were actually cut out. He physically, like, properly cut out those sounds in those moments where the kick is hitting. So that when the kick is hitting, everything else is actually missing. You won't know it because the way he has cut it is so smooth that we are not actually understanding the other instruments have been cut out, but he has actually made sure that the kick is the only instrument that hits during those microseconds. But after that, the other instruments can be heard. So the kick is also finding its space. These instruments are also finding its space. These are the decisions that we take in mixing. So I'm just giving you, if he had not done that, the kick would not have had that much of thump in the song. And it would probably not have made you want to dance as much. So for a dance song, the decisions are different. For a love song, the decisions are different. It's always like that. It's like every song and every emotion that we are trying to create is what we would make these mixing decisions for. But I'm just giving you certain examples of how a mixing engineer and a composer have to think. This is what I wanted to do. I want the flute to, like, okay, again, if I have to give you a different example, um, like Maari Daari. Okay, I'll give you that example. So if that music, if you take the like initially when the thing starts, there is this that's it. That's all. And that was just a loop that I was playing around with. I really liked it. I told you, I'm basically like a mad scientist. I just press stuff and see what happens. It's like that. So this loop came up. I found it very interesting. And I decided, so that thing gave me the idea that I'll go for something hip hop. Now, in that particular track, the only direction I had was that the phrase Maari ke Daari has to come. Because that, I don't know if you know what the meaning is. Maari is God, like God, or, that particular deity. Daari is give way. So give way for the deity. Give way for the deity is what they say. So when this is happening, so my idea was that again, it is a sense of almost foreboding that has to be created. Like something is coming. Now I'm just putting myself in the shoes of an audience member who's waiting for an update from Toby, and the first thing that is coming out is this motion poster. I am looking for something which will create that sense of foreboding and, oh, something big is coming, is what I want to create in the mind of the audience member. Right? So initially, okay, I'm listening, I'm intrigued. Tell me next. And then when that some kind of a sound comes in, okay, something bigger has come in, right? And at the same time, I want that Mari. I don't want it to start just like that. I wanted to build. I want them to hear it coming from far away. It's coming in, its volume is increasing, increasing. And of course, because I was doing it at 3 o'clock in the morning, hopped up on coffee, my voice sounded like, Amrish Puri's voice at that point of time. So it's like, Mari, Mari. That was my voice. So I just layered a few tracks of that. Again, just added a little bit of that vocal processing tricks which I used on Chaitra's voice and stuff like that. So again, made it a little scarier, build it up, and the one of the best parts of about creating a hard hitting piece of music, or I would say one of the most important aspects, is creating that build up. So that woo 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 woo, and then it drops, and then the hip hop beat kicks in. So it's so all those, and even those little elements. So I also, one of the things which I wanted to use in that are certain sounds which sounded kind of like goats, not necessarily like exactly a goat's bleating or anything of that sort, but I wanted something like that. So you can hear a lot of oh, all those kinds of stuff are there in the background. So
Yeah.
again, oh, by the way, just so you know, for every 10 ideas that you hear in Toby, or in that piece, I can assure you that some 30 or 40 things must have been rejected, because I would have
Okay.
put it in thinking that this will work. I listened to it, oh God, this sounds like absolute nonsense. Throw it out. And then something else. So it is like that. It's that process of discovery and, just trying something out. Okay, this works, this does not work. Now, even if this works, where do I put, like, I get a sound, let's say, which goes like, oh, now where do I put it? Which part of the song is where I want it to come in? So all these decisions are, that's how we choose it. And yeah, and then to make the track a little more interesting, maybe I might take one effect and make it move from left to right, another from right to left.
Right. Yeah.
Something is sounding very far away, something. So in that song, if you listen, there is a section where once the beat hits, there is a section where it all goes like Maari ke Daari. So what I wanted was, this beat comes in and then the whole thing just zooms, and then it should almost feel like there is this person standing right in front of your face and
Right.
telling you Maari ke Daari. That, see, these are all those little things which makes the track interesting. So it's
Yes.
again, just moments of inspiration, which then are. But the good thing, the thing which I am happy about as a musician is that, as I said, a moment of inspiration like that would have taken me a long time to execute in a convincing
Hmm.
way, probably 5 or 6 years earlier, when I was just
Yeah.
3 or 4 films old. Today I can do it much faster. I'm constantly trying to learn. YouTube is my biggest, like my encyclopedia. Keep watching
Yeah.
production. This thing. Guys who are much younger than her, yeah, sorry, younger than me, much smaller kids, men and women who have wonderful production techniques that they put up, small videos. So I just watched that. Okay, immediately try that out. Okay, this is something which I like. So this is how you keep. It's a tool. I remember Mammootty sir in one of his interviews keeps saying that I'm basically like this brass utensil. You keep
Okay.
polishing me, I will shine even more. So that's exactly what I'm trying to do. So that's it.
That's great. That's great. And you just like the way you talked about the foreboding aspect in
Yeah,
the end of the film, when Raj's character, once he takes, once he assumes that place of the deity and he
yeah,
comes sitting on that horse, it
yeah.
all makes sense that yes, someone is
Yes,
coming.
correct.
I unfortunately I'd watched that film. There were no subtitles, but some
As
people
is
were
it.
there who could help me out with understanding what was it. But
Okay.
that visual and the music, They
Yeah.
just perfectly complement each other, and it just perfectly explains. I
Correct.
during this conversation, I'm coming back to this one word which has become very popular, and it's called elevation. Like every time you listen about someone talking about a film, everyone will say, "Ski, dude, elevation, elevation." I always feel like that. Yes, of course, like you just said, acting and the actor, of course, they are doing a fantastic job on screen. The screen presence is there, but that elevation
Mm.
happens because of music. If there is
Yeah.
a reason why we all cheer and dance and just become extremely excited, or feel different things when we see something like
Correct.
character
Yeah.
introductions. I think the music is the soul of a character introduction. If the music is like matlab, I won't say bad, but if the
Mm.
music is not fitting, then
Yeah.
you will not root for that character. Let's just say
Correct.
that. Like,
Correct.
if I would like to take the example of Leo has so many moments. I mean, Sanjay Dutt, be it for Sanjay Dutt or be it for just Talpati Vijay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel that music is that one aspect which just elevates that feeling of experience.
See,
And I just
I
always
cannot
feel that.
I
Ah,
cannot disagree with it, but at the same
okay.
time, I think it's an incomplete statement because of the fact that the music does not happen if those visuals have not been shot like that,
Yes,
if
yes,
it has
true.
not been edited like that, and more importantly, if it has not been conceived by the writer and the director. See, I'll give you an example. One of the most goosebumps kind of a moment which I felt in a theater recently was when I watched Triple R, that scene
Okay.
where Junior NTR jumps out with all those animals, you know.
Right, right.
Now, let us just imagine for a second that that shot where he jumps out is basically, it's like almost like the camera is on the ground looking up and he's jumping out with all these magnificent animals jumping along with him. And then there is a side shot where his face and a tiger's face is side by side. So those are the shots. Now let us just say that instead of that, we kept a camera back there and just one wide shot. Okay, everybody jump.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
imagine, it would not have the impact, right? Mr. Kiravani could have given the greatest score in the history of all cinema, and it would not have worked. And along with that, Rajamouli and his writers, the way they wrote that scene, how it built,
Yeah.
that right from the time when the truck is waiting outside, there is a this thing, then it comes crashing in, and then it turns, and
Yes.
then it is lifted, and then this thing happens. And at that time, the oh, something like that, or that kind of a sound comes. Oh God, it's like, as I think about it, I have goosebumps. You know, it's one of my
Yes.
favorite. I know it's absolutely senseless scene. You know, in real life, it's not gonna happen, right? But just the way it was presented, it made me believe, it made me
Yep.
feel, and I was literally whistling at that point in the theater. And that is exactly what cinema is supposed to do. So I completely agree with you that if the music probably was not that effective, or if or if Kiravani sir had not probably made those choices that he did when he did that. In fact, the best piece of music in that film is not even for that scene. For me, it is when the Triple R title comes, when
Yeah.
RRR comes, there is a thing which he has done with the, like with that konnakol. So it's like basically two, three guys are doing this konnakol on top of each other. And there is so much of urgency, so much of drama happening. It's not loud trumpets or big drums. It is just this. So it's like two guys. If I remember right, it goes something like one guy's like he's doing that, and then another guy comes suddenly from the left. Sorry, from the right speakers. It's like it goes around like that, and I felt like these crazy singers are all running around me in the theater. That is the
Yeah.
sensation it gave me. And in
Yeah.
that moment, I am like, oh God, let's come on, let's watch this movie once again. You know, that sensation. And I think that, so that timing of how the Triple R logo should come, the editor who decided that that's where it should come, and then the graphics that were, designed for it, and then the music, and then the mixing engineer who decided along with Kiravani sir to pan it like that, to make it move
Yeah.
around. These are all decisions which have given you those goosebumps.
Correct.
So I
Correct.
do agree partly that music is a huge aspect of it, but there are these, without these guys, it does not happen. Is what, like, I've
Yeah.
never felt the same level of goosebumps I felt in the theater listening to that music when I listened to it
Yeah.
on headphones at home. right?
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. That's the only difference. But yes, music is a huge aspect, and this word that you mentioned, elevation, for me that is also a double-edged sword because of the fact that what happens is that, see, by definition, if elevation has to go up, it has to
Yeah.
start from below,
Correct.
right? So if you have to elevate, the graph has to come down and then you have to build, right?
Hmm.
Now, with the problem with social media and pretty much everybody becoming, see, I don't mind everybody being a lover of cinema and having their opinion about cinema. But when everybody starts becoming an expert on cinema and then says that, this movie, every scene is an elevation, which makes absolutely no sense. It's not possible. You can't elevate and elevate. Where will you go and stop? Right? So that doesn't make sense to me. But the point is that in a mass film, in a Dalapati Vijay film, we are going to have mass moments like that, right? Master, his master, that his entry where he runs after the bus and the
Yeah.
turn
Yeah.
turn 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 turn. Turn, I think it's probably one of Anirudh's greatest pieces and probably one of Dalapati Vijay's best entries in a film. I love that
Okay.
film, right? Now that movie, after that, it has to take a dip. We are setting up his normal life, how he drinks around. He's a professor. He's very cool with the kids. It has to come down. And then when the next fight in the college happens, it has to again build up from there. So you
Yeah.
see that
Yeah.
graph has to happen. Now, in a mass film, there are going to be moments like that. But if I take a film of mine like Swati Muthana Malayani,
Yeah.
it's not going to have moments like that. It's not going to
Hmm.
have moments where the hero is running behind a bus, but it's going to have moments which might make you want to cry. Now, from an
Correct.
emotional aspect, from a film's graph aspect, that is the elevation, making you want to cry. As I
Yeah.
don't know if you have seen Swati Muthana, but there
No,
is
I
a
have to watch it. Yes.
yeah. So there is a so it's basically the story of a dying man and
Yeah.
a woman who falls in love with him. I won't give you
Yes.
any further spoilers, but this is a
No, no,
basic
I
thing. So right from the get-go, we know that the film is going to end in tragedy. There is no
right.
twist here. There is no happy ending that's going to happen. But even knowing that, in the towards the end of that film, when the protagonists are finally speaking, and you know that we literally have hours left or days left for these people to communicate their feelings to each other, you actually want him to live. You
Yeah.
get that feeling, so the music also gives that feeling of this is an inevitable ripping of the heart that is going to happen, but I don't want it to happen. For me,
Yeah.
that is elevation, right? But it has gotten to a point where if there is a turn 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 turn, turn, then that is elevation. Illa andre I background score. What nonsense background score? There are these kinds of comments which I see. Which see, the problem is that being a public figure, being an artist, being a person who puts your work out there for others to judge and criticize. I genuinely do not have the luxury of fighting with everybody or arguing with everybody over this. But it does feel frustrating sometimes. There are audience members who have so much of maturity. Like, I am a person who loves the Dalpati Vijay movie and love films like October or Swati Muthana, which
Yes.
are absolute
Yes.
tearjerkers, right? I love both,
Absolutely.
and you can appreciate both these films. You can enjoy both of them. You can appreciate the craft behind them. But when I see comments which make me feel like only if you do the mass movie is your music good, then it's a little. It's not even like I get upset about it because I know that it makes no sense, but I almost want to get into an argument and
Yeah.
educate them, like tell them that please, broaden your horizons. Think about what you're talking about. That frustration does happen once in a while. So as you said, with social media, with OTT and all these things, it is sometimes very, very nice that more people get involved in the dialogue around cinema, talking about cinema, understanding
Yeah.
cinema. That is something which is very, very refreshing. But at the same time, it does have its negative side that you have to listen to a lot of uninformed opinions or probably naive opinions. And we have to
Yeah.
take it as, oh, that is your opinion. Okay, thank you for letting me know. I really, that can be a little frustrating at times. But yeah,
Sure.
it's an ongoing process. I think as a cinema viewing society itself, we are in the process of being more mature. We are probably in that high school phase or teenage phase right now. As an audience, we probably need to evolve a little bit
Yeah.
more. That's all.
Yes, absolutely. And like you just said, yes, it is, all of this is a culmination of everything that you see.
Yeah.
And I, yeah, I think I will still say I am slightly more gravitated towards music because it is because of music that I So let me tell you something. Would you,
Sure.
if can I share something with you personally?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, so I watched Lord of the Rings for the very first time. Unfortunately I was not there when the film came out in theaters.
Yeah.
You are one of those few lucky people who got it watched it in theaters, but
Yeah,
I could not watch it in theater. But I was like, I will watch the extended editions. I'll
yeah.
spend one day and I'll watch the 11-hour cut.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I was watching it, and I before watching Lord of the Rings, I had never cried. I had never cried after watching a film, but when Sam says goodbye to Frodo in the last scene,
Scene, yeah.
I could not believe that I'm crying. And one of the reasons later, now, even when I still adore that music and I listen to it as much as I can,
Mhm.
those tears come again. So
Yeah.
sometimes I don't need the visuals. Sometimes I just
Possible.
need that music,
True.
because that music just evokes that feeling in me. And I
Yes,
was like,
absolutely.
so which is why I'm slightly more gravitated towards the music aspect.
I
I feel
absolutely
that,
agree with you. Absolutely. No, and
yeah,
I'll tell you this also. See, there is why I mentioned this particular point that music is not the only factor is because you mentioned the word elevation. Now, that is
yeah,
something which I
exactly,
hear
yeah,
a lot nowadays. See, like
yes,
as I said,
yes,
coming back to that example of Master's intro scene,
yeah, yeah,
Anirudh's music is brilliant. Even now, I listen to it when sometimes what happens is when I'm working and I'm completely like, my mind is just gone blank and I feel very metallic and nothing organic is coming out. I just stand at my window, I'll be having a cup of coffee and I listen to something which excites me. And that background score is probably my favorite track to like pump me up.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it does have an effect on its own. But in the
yeah.
movie, why I whistled when I saw it or why I still enjoy it, it's one of my favorite clips to watch on YouTube. That the way
Okay,
he comes and he runs and his swag and everything. So all those telepathy swag, the way it is shot, the way it is edited, all that, and even the
yeah,
scene leading up to it, all those things matter.
yeah,
But this particular aspect that you mentioned, like I am a person who cries like a baby in movies to this day. All this daddy waddy all is an absolute waste. I will cry like an absolute baby. There is no lack of masculinity that I feel in it. I will cry like crazy. And I love that I do that because that is why I'm able to do this job. I feel that. So, and the
yeah,
same thing goes with certain pieces of music. One piece of music which always brings tears to my eyes. And the funny thing is, I don't even know why it does it. It's probably scientifically, if we look, maybe it's the frequency of some note that is being played, or I don't know what it is, but it's like without my, like, when you see biryani and you're really hungry and you salivate without knowing, this makes me
yeah,
cry without knowing. I do not know why. Right?
yeah.
So one of the pieces is that Bombay theme.
Oh, yes.
When those strings come in, I don't know, like it just immediately there is this rush of something that happens, but it's not like I'm pumped up. I feel sad. I feel
Sad.
mournful. That
Yeah.
is one. Then there is another piece of Rahman's which always makes me cry. And this is surprising because that piece is not even a sad piece, but it's this. In Swades, there is a track called "Pal Pal Hai Bhari Wo Dare
I'm
Dare."
so sorry. I'm reacting this way because I kid you not, I was about to mention Swades. Oh my God, Midhun, I have to meet you in person. Oh God. Because I recently, like, again, we did a video essay on Swades and I went back and revisited the film.
Yeah.
The background score, the
Oh,
placement of the themes, when something will appear. Oh my
yes.
God, I could never believe that Swades. I will cry after watching Swades. Swades is a film that should uplift you and empower you and
Yes.
all that, but
Yes.
then, oh my God, it leaves you shattered. It leaves you shattered when there is that मिट्टी की जो खुशबू
Oh,
का जो
yes.
वो आता है ना
The
ना ना
instrumental.
ना
Oh,
ना
yes.
ना ना I I could not believe that I could have this experience. I'm so sorry
Yes.
to interrupt you.
No,
Please
no, no, no,
continue.
no.
I
You're
just,
absolutely right
yeah,
because this is exactly what I was leading to. In that
yeah, yeah.
movie, there are two pieces. One is the scene because that scene is a sad scene. The one where he gets water from that small boy outside the train. And this Mitti Ki Hai Khushbu, that is the genius of A.R. Rahman. He takes Mitti Ki Hai Khushbu, and in the song, it has this uplifting, very, like you feel proud about your country without harping about it. You just feel very genuinely, quietly proud about your country. You feel like you want to go back to India. That kind of a feeling. And when I heard that song, I was an NRI at the time. I was living in the Middle East. So
Okay.
it
Okay.
genuinely makes you feel you miss your country. That is the sensation that it gives in the song. But in that particular scene, when he recreated that melody, the chords and the instrumentation that he used, it brings tears to your eyes, just like how it brings tears to Shah Rukh Khan's eyes, that character's eyes in that scene. That is one piece, and then there is another song which basically they present a, I think, a Ramayana ballet or
Ramayana.
something like that.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So in Pal Pal Hai Bhari Wo Dare Dare. Now in the album there is a flute version of it, right? There's a flute version of it. So the melody goes like. I'm actually finding it hard to sing. I don't know why that melody has already made me choke up a little bit. There is something about it. Whenever I hear that song, I immediately have this burning sensation in my eyes. I do not know why, but that is the power of, music or good music. As you said, so in no way am I challenging you on the fact that music
No.
has a
No. No.
very profound effect, but in
No. No.
cinema,
No.
in a
Yeah.
cinematic experience, it is
Yes.
one of the cogs. That's the only thing.
Absolutely.
Swades is, I told you, Swades itself can be a podcast, as you said. We can do 3 podcasts on Swades alone. Oh, it's just one of the things I always talk to when we talk among colleagues and everything. I think the fact that Swades failed at the box office is something for the Indian cinema going audience should always consider as a small point of shame. Because for
Hmm.
me, it's a magical film. Like I loved Lagan, no doubt about it. But for me, Swades is literally Ashutosh Gwarikar and A.R. Rahman's. Everybody's graph went one notch higher. The fact that that film
Absolutely.
did not work is something which still, maybe it was the wrong time. I think it was not the right time for that film. Today, maybe it would have had a different fate. Because every aspect, even that piece of music, it was my ringtone for such a long time. That
Yes.
oh my goodness! It's like, and what he has, like, it's such a simple piece. Even the background score, the background instruments are so simple, but it like it catches you just like that. I told you that
Absolutely.
that man's genius is it's volumes. We have
In
to keep
in
talking.
in in incomprehensible. Let's just say that
Yes, yes.
it's
And there are other pieces also. Talking about Junkie XL, in Mad
yeah.
Max, there is a scene where Furiosa comes back to and comes and meets her tribe, the women.
Hmm.
And when she meets them, and then she finds out that the green place is no more. There is a scene where she takes off her arm and walks into the dune, and she falls, and there's a string thing which, see, that's what I said. Elevation, you have to understand the difference of elevation also.
Correct. Correct.
That movie has the loudest sounds. There is nothing, there is no film that has more explosions and heavy drums and, things like that,
There is
distortion
a
guitars.
guy there's a guy who's literally playing guitar in the
Playing
entire
distortion, yeah, and his guitar throws out fire in the thing, and with all that heaviness, for me, the moment which I was like, because the visual that her walking off, taking off that arm, now armless, and she goes and Charlie Theron just falls onto the dune, and that the whole frame, and then this man's music just comes in. See, for me, that was probably the most elevating point of the film. And that is another scene which actually brought tears to my eyes. How do I understand the emotion of a Furiosa or of people living in a post-apocalyptic world or of a
yeah.
woman? I shouldn't be able to, but I still felt it, because of the
That's true.
scene, because of the music. So that is probably one other piece which always brings tears to my eyes. And yeah, Lord of the Rings, I think since you mentioned it, I think, I do
Okay.
not know, I think it's probably inside this. Ah, yeah, there it is. I have an entire box set of the whole 11 hours, but the problem now is that I don't have anywhere to play DVDs on. I don't have a DVD player. In my entire life, the only box set of DVDs I've ever purchased is Lord of the Rings. It's just,
I think I should join Hriday when it comes to being brothers from another mother, because I have a box set of the entire Lord of the Rings and Hobbit
Yes.
extended editions, and it's the new Dolby Atmos mix. And
Oh, is it?
again, I don't have the 5.1, but yeah, it's riveting. I mean, I think when it comes to the word elevation, what people kind of miss is the word emotional. You should
Yes.
attach the word emotional elevation, and then
Absolutely.
it completes the circle.
Correct. No,
That is
because
there.
even when you cheer for your favorite mass hero, also that is an emotion.
Yeah,
There are films of these the biggest heroes which do not work, right? Because of the
yeah,
same factor. If only his presence was required, every film that his poster comes with should be a a rollicking success. It's not like that. The film and the story should connect to you, and then that hero is the that star or the female actor or whoever it is or that director. They are the one who basically push you further towards that emotion. But that emotional core has to be there.
yeah.
So the music also has to have that. I think one of my favorite mass movies, which I probably saw in college, was Rowdy Rathod.
Oh,
The Hindi version, not the Telugu
Hindi
version.
version.
Yeah, so
Yes, yes, yes.
Akshay Kumar's. I don't know why that film appealed to me back then so much. I mean, even now, I think it's a fun movie to watch. Other than
Yeah.
the parts where the woman is being pinched from all God knows which places, keeping that aside, the comedy of that film was something which I genuinely enjoyed. Like, him and Akshay Kumar and Nasser and that timing and even the songs, that thing, Chinta, Ta, Chita, all that. I just found it very entertaining. Now, in that film also, there is a scene where Akshay Kumar does this "Don't angry me," and then he walks, and then he starts pointing his fingers, and things start exploding. And as I said, I genuinely enjoyed it. I was emotionally very much enjoying that movie or the place where it happens has no connection to me. And I wouldn't say I'm a diehard fan of Akshay Kumar. I think he's a good
Sure.
performer. I really enjoy watching some of his films. But that movie, I was rooting for the hero. I was rooting for him, and that is the thing. So that cinematic experience made, and the music in that scene is absolutely brilliant. Like something I
Right.
forgot what it was, but Sandeep Chauta
It
did the
was
background score.
so it was something like a very heavy rowdy, rowdy,
Rowdy
Rathod,
Rathod. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then it builds up.
Builds up.
The it the tempo increases, and
Yes.
then ta-da-da, ta-da-da,
Correct.
tang
Some
tang
horns come
tang,
on top.
and
Yes, yes,
yes,
yes, yes.
yes, that was
Sandeep
there.
Chauhan did the score of that film, and I told you again, very nicely done. And even there's another song also in that movie which I love. It was actually a Vidyasagar composition. Are Pritam Pyare. Well, I heard
Yeah.
that song in the theater for the first time. I had never heard the Tamil version before. I heard this
Okay.
version. I was totally blown away. And by the way, Vidyasagar is after Rahman probably number two in my list of my idols is Vidyasagar, probably the greatest composer of melodies that I've ever come across. And by melodies, I mean not just soft melodies, but even danceable melodies. He's the man who composed Appadi Pod Pod Pod. I think you must have
Oh.
heard that song.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Absolutely.
yes, so he's the composer of that song. This
Wow.
R.A. Pritam Pyare also, the original Tamil was composed by him. So many songs, so many. Dalapati Vijay's Gilli, this where Appadi Podu
Yeah.
comes from. So and in Malayalam he's the legend of legends because the number of
Right.
songs that he's done. I think his career in Malayalam was the most successful. He was our A.R. Rahman because A.R. Rahman was too expensive for Malayalam. So Vidyasagar was our A.R. Rahman, and the songs that he has created are, I told you again, things which set me on the path today is he's as important, if not more, as A.R. Rahman is. Because A.R. Rahman for me was composition, production, presentation. Vidyasagar was a person who like he would present things in the best possible way, very modern thing and everything, but his tunes were so good that you didn't need any of that. You just needed a piano and you could sing it, and oh God, that man was a magician. So as I said,
Absolutely.
all these aspects, like these people doing their work is why that song connected, why that scene connected, why that movie connected, and that is the
Right.
cinematic experience. It's there is no. I always tell people this is like sometimes even when we are having creative discussions also. I think that scene requires an elevation. I was like, this scene elevates, then how do I elevate for the next scene? Where do we go from there? I have 10 drums here. I can't use 100 drums for the next one. It makes no sense. So that's what I said. This whole elevation thing is a very double-edged sword because, as you said, people need to understand that it's the emotion that has to elevate. You have
Correct.
to feel
Correct.
like when Rocky Bai comes in and beats somebody, it is not just that Rocky Bai is hitting somebody. He is hitting somebody who deserves it. And he is standing up for the oppressed people. That is why we are rooting for Rocky Bai. Right? So
True.
it's like that. That emotional aspect is very important. I mean, yes, with all his swag and his good looks and everything, cannot just come randomly hit a person and I'll start cheering for him. Is when I'm made to believe that there is a reason. That big Gunda was, he deserved it, and that's why he's hitting him. Then I am ready to root for him. So this aspect, as you mentioned very correctly, that emotional elevation is the right term actually. Yes.
Absolutely. And now that I hope you have like 10-15 minutes
Yes, yes,
with
yes.
you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, more than the mother's lullaby in KGF, like we
Uh-huh.
are talking about emotional elevation,
Yeah.
more than the quintessential Tannani Naro,
Yeah.
mother's lullaby,
Yeah.
there is the scene in part two when he is saying ki ye shanti, matlab, I watched it in Hindi and
Hindi. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
haven't watched it in Kannada, but
Yeah. Yeah.
and he says ये शांति है मेरी माँ और छोटे गांव की थी और ऐसे
Correct.
this and when he goes to his jeep, when he goes back and
Ah.
the lady who is standing there कि इसे करने वाली तो इसकी माँ थी लेकिन अब इसे रोकने वाला कोई नहीं है,
Ah.
that time the music is I मतलब I don't know how to describe this to you. I'm in loss of words, and more than the mother's lullaby, it is that one moment.
Yeah.
Ah,
Correct.
ah, oh God! And the entire arrangement of music of that scene
Yes.
is
Yes.
brilliant, and I'm
Correct.
so glad I watched it in IMAX because that just
Oh, nice.
took it to the next
Nice.
level,
Nice.
and I yeah, it's just
And
one of
that's what I'm
those
saying, right? Like
moments for
a
me.
movie
Yeah,
like KGF, KGF 2,
yeah,
probably the most massiest moment in that would have been the Kalashnikov sequence.
yes,
But
yes,
without, and so many fights and, so many explosions and all that. And still the moment that stuck with you the most was that particular mother sentiment. And when he walked back, probably one of the most like not even, I'm not saying that it's eventless, but it's basically like, there's nothing much happening. It's just a walk. It's an emotional moment. It's what you feel inside that is important in that moment. But that is the moment that stuck with you the most, right? So that emotional elevation happened there, and that is why it
yes,
works.
yes.
I think. See, and that is exactly the point. It's like KGF 2, in my opinion, should not just be classified as mass masala film. It is there is a lot of
Absolutely.
there's a lot of hard work, there's a lot of craft which goes into that to create that product that you require, right? That the audience is coming to the theater to watch. There's a lot of craft and finesse, and even when I do not do the first thing, I can't even take a photo on my phone camera. I'm terrible with
Okay.
photography, but I believe that considering what I do for my job and what Mr. Ravi Basru does for his job, I'm sure that even the cinematographer Bhuvan Gowda would have waited for hours to get the right light for a particular shot, and then the actor has to come and stand in the right. So you can imagine how much. It's not just that Yash is like, oh, I'm a good-looking guy, so I'll just come walking. No, he has to walk a certain way. He has to walk at a certain speed, come and stand there, and then he has to embody that Rocky Bhai in his look. See, there is a lot of finesse and craft that goes into it. And of course,
Absolutely.
not to forget Mr. Prashant Neel. So what I'm saying is that aspect is there because this kind of a separation that this is a mass film, that is a class film. I hear those words and I kind of lose it at times. So
Uh,
it's all cinema. It is all meant to make you feel something. If it makes you feel something, a film like Undumote Kathe, which was such a small film, completely unknown people. People were whistling at the very end of the film when finally these two get together. Because by the end of that movie, this man that they have never seen before, this actor that they have never seen before, this director who they have never heard of before, the music director, cinematographer, nobody is known to them. But by
yeah,
the end, they have started rooting for that character. That is the emotional connection. That is an emotional
absolutely.
elevation as far as I am concerned. Right? So
Absolutely.
that's the only thing. So I think if we start looking at films more like that, rather than as a fan or as a person who is just looking for elevation moments and mass moments and things there, I think every film has its own space. Let us just accept that and
Yes.
appreciate and respect that also. I
Yes.
just mentioned this because sometimes the whole dialogue on social media and all can get a little unnecessarily toxic. I just feel bad when somebody says that, this actor's movies are all so much fun to watch, but that actor's movies are so boring, or this music is so good because it is massy and that music is bad because I don't think you have to really be that reductionist about something as diverse as cinema. And
Absolutely.
every director that I have worked with has had a different approach towards cinema. So with so much of variety, so many personalities coming together, just accept it. Just watch it. If you like it, it's a good movie. If you don't like it, it's a bad movie. I told you, you and I loved Swades. For me, one of the greatest films always ever made. Failed at the box
Absolutely.
office. Do you start abusing Mr. Ashutosh Gwarikar or Shah Rukh Khan because of that? Come on, right? But
Yep.
that does tend to happen in social media.
Yeah.
That does tend to happen. So at least whoever is watching this podcast, I would say at the very least, let's refrain from doing that. You have every right to say that you like the music, you like the movie, you like the acting, but let us just not, move down to a reductionist thing that, it's such a slow film. It takes its time to grow because it was always meant to be like that. So this was always meant to be like, there was no cricket match at the end which was going to give you goosebumps, right? That's not why Mohan is going to fall in love with India. It was a self-discovery that was happening. How can that happen within three scenes? He needed
Yeah.
time. The director did it so beautifully. Shah Rukh Khan, for me, one of the greatest performances of his career. All that happened, and when people say that, it's a slow film, so it's a bad film, I almost take it personally. I have nothing to do with that movie, but I almost take it personally and get offended because it is such a travesty to say that about that film. It's such a beautiful
Absolutely.
movie. So yeah, that's what I meant. I'm just saying that as an audience, our audiences are far more intelligent than sometimes we filmmakers give them credit for. You
Yeah.
give it to them, and then you will see how they'll surprise you by how. I felt that during Rorschach, when such a complicated story to understand, but how people were picking it up in the theater on the first day, first show was beyond shocking to me. I remember one of the first things I did when I came out of the theater, because the director did not come for the first day, first show. He was too
Okay.
nervous, or he just didn't
Okay.
want that kind of a thing. I called him and I was like, Nisam, I'm blown away. I'm blown away by our audiences because these are not intellectuals and philosophers. They're just normal college students, families, some, random guys just walking off because they're Mammootty fans. They just want to come and watch the film. But they're all involved and they're understanding the unsaid things that we have communicated through metaphors and everything. They're picking up on it like that. So we sometimes underestimate the intelligence of our audience. That is probably a mistake that filmmakers do make once in a while. But a film like Swades is something which I feel maybe we as an audience failed the film. It's one of those rare moments where I feel that. But yeah, like I would really like that dialogue around cinema to probably mature a little bit more. It's good that it has increased in volume. Earlier, only critics who wrote reviews in newspapers were the ones who spoke about it. Others just said that I like the movie. This is my favorite actor. That's it. It just used to end there. Now people are talking more. As you mentioned, so many people are so interested in the background score of a film. I don't think
Yeah.
in my lifetime I have ever heard people speaking about background score so much. Even as a child growing up, when I was such a big fan of Rahman and I used to love how he used to score, everybody was interested in Rahman's songs.
Yeah.
Very few people spoke about the score, at least in your immediate surroundings. If you listen to a cinema lover or a cinema buff speaking, that is different.
Yeah.
But now
Of course.
everybody seems to have that kind of a connection and appreciation and understanding of cinema, which is a great sign. But we still need to understand that there is room to grow and room to evolve and mature and everything. That's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well said. And I would like to close with two things.
Yeah.
Firstly, I would like to ask you the very last question of this, that I recently made this reel on Fahad Fazil and the
Mm.
films that don't get enough attention. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you that apart from the popular tracks and scores that you have composed,
Mm.
if you can suggest something that you have composed, but it gets overlooked quite a lot of times, what would
Okay.
those tracks be that you have composed?
Um, I would say there is this. My album, my first film called Kahi. It was a it was a movie which actually got me a lot of work. In fact, the first, I would say, five, six, seven films that I did in Kannada, all the directors who came to me mentioned Kahi, mentioned Kahi's music and what they felt. And I've heard this so many times that people have actually said that they used to write their screenplays keeping Kahi in the background, the score of Kahi in the
Wow.
background, because it was inspiring to them. So that is, I think it's probably one of the best reviews that I've gotten for a score of mine. But because of the fact that it was an independent film and it released just a few days before demonetization was announced, and because of that, the whole collection of everything just shut down. And I think it
Yeah.
was on the
Yeah.
fourth day of our release. So all those factors together, I think the general public haven't seen that film as much as I would have liked them to see. And because it was an independent film, we couldn't even sign up with a traditional audio label back then. So the entire score of that film is actually on my director's YouTube channel. So,
Okay.
so I mean, I know that it's a product that I'm extremely proud of. We achieved a level of quality back then, which I think was I'm very proud of what we achieved because I really think that the product that we achieved was far beyond where we were as him as a filmmaker and me as a music composer at that stage. What we were able to really push ourselves and get something which was far beyond what we should have been capable of. Of course, with the support of my engineer again, because that was my first film with him. And the way he guided us and how he helped us understand what we were doing right and what we were doing wrong. All those things really helped us in such a way to create an album like that. So I think Kahi is one album of mine which I wish more people would listen to. And similarly, I think there is a song in Kannada which I did for a film called Sakudamba Sameta. The
Okay.
song's name is Sangati. It was sung by the lead actress of the film, Siri Ravikumar. She has a beautiful voice also. So I think that is one of my songs which I'm very proud of. I always feel happy that okay, you did something good here. You were able to compose this song. In fact, there's another
Right.
song also in that movie called Aa Kanasu, sung by Haricharan. That is also a song which I really like. But Sangati has a very, very, like, again, I would say that was the kind of sound that I aspired to make back when I was dreaming about being a music composer. So, in that way, I think Sangati is something which I mean, lots of people have heard it. It was a Rakshit Shetty production, and the film was also decently appreciated. Like, in fact, quite well appreciated, I would say. It's just that the number of footfalls in theaters and the getting the movie to people was probably a little lesser than I would have liked to. And being in cinema, that is inversely, directly proportional to how many people listen to the music also. Like Garuda Gamna reached so many people, so many people have listened to the music. This film, we
Yeah.
couldn't get that. But I think the people who have heard that, I've always gotten like really glowing reviews. It's not just that it's a nice song. I've heard very glowing reviews about that song. Similarly, there's a song in one of my not so successful Malayalam films called Poovan. The film's name was Poovan.
Okay.
And in that movie, there is this almost like a ghazal kind of a song which I had composed called Kadalatindu. I sang the song. It was written by Suhail Koya. He's a wonderful lyricist in Malayalam. So that song, like he also enjoyed writing it so much because I gave him
Hmm.
this tune which I had composed as like almost like a ghazal kawali kind of a track, and it's almost like a heartbroken. The theme is of heartbreak, and
Okay.
we have given it this kind of a vibe, and I presented it with a little more of a modern touch, not much of these tabla and things like that, what you usually
Hmm.
associate with a ghazal or kawali. None
Yeah.
of that was
Yeah.
there. So, in terms of the presentation, in terms of even, I think among the songs that I have sung, I would say that was probably my one of my best performances as a playback singer. So I really like that song too. But again, very few people have. Same, I told you, right? When this film does not do well, it's very hard for the songs to really come out unless it's one of those rare songs which is like a instant super blockbuster hit on its own, despite the fate of the film. It's usually very difficult for a song to become popular if the film has not worked. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that is one song I wish more people would listen to. But yeah, I mean, and see, the thing is, ultimately, what I would say is I do not fret too much about the fate of a song in terms of views and likes and all that stuff. I always think about it this way: if let's say today somebody decides to search and go back and start revisiting the discography of Midhun Mukundan, I do not want there to be a track in there which people think that, oh, this is not of the quality of the tracks that he has done otherwise. I want that quality to be maintained. I want it to get better as I go along. Now, how many people listen to it, how many people hear it, and how much appreciation I get for it, I obviously I want everything to be a super duper blockbuster hit with 1 billion views on YouTube, definitely. But obviously it's not going to happen. But even the songs
Right.
which are not appreciated, like 15 years down the line, if somebody hears this song and sends me a message and says that, sir, this song, like, it just made me go into another world, or it changed my life, or something like that. I think that is what I'm aiming with every piece of work that I create. I want to be proud of it. When I'm 60, 65, 70, and I can probably not sit in front of a computer anymore and I'm all, bent up, at that point, I should be happy about what I've created. I do not want any regrets in terms of the quality. Films will work, films might not work. There are hundreds of
Yeah.
reasons. There are great films which have failed just because they were released at the wrong time, like, probably wrong time period, or maybe they
Yeah.
clashed with another film which was even better. Not that this film is not good, but that was just even better, or even more massy, or something of that sort. There are so many instances around this. So
Yeah.
that is something which I try to divorce myself of emotionally, because that is a very dark path to go down. If every song that you expect will become a hit will not become a hit, you can't really start feeling bad about that. You have to dust it off and move on to the next thing. But this is the thing. For me, the ultimate aim is that when I've probably finished like 40, 50 years of this job, I should sit back and say that, okay, whether it's the first film or the 200th film, I have done the best that I could, and people will
Yeah.
appreciate that. If I'm there, I think I'm a satisfied man.